The door creaked open like a confession I never meant to hear. And there he was, Christopher, my stepson, sprawled on his bed in the fading light of our quiet Ohio suburb, his hand frozen mid-stroke beneath the sheets, eyes wide with the terror of being seen. In that split second, the air thickened with a heat that had nothing to do with the summer humidity pressing against the windows. And I knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, that walking away wasn't an option anymore. His lips parted in a silent gasp, not of shame, but of something raw and electric, mirroring the storm raging inside meth man who'd married his mother 5 years ago to build a family, now staring at the boy who'd become the center of my unspoken world. I should have turned, muttered something about privacy, and bolted down the hallway to the safety of the kitchen where dishes waited like old friends. But my feet betrayed me, rooted to the worn hardwood floor of his room, cluttered with college textbooks and faded band posters from a youth he was just stepping out of. Christopher was 20 now, no longer the gangly kid I'd met at 15, but a young man with sharp jawlines and a quiet intensity that made my pulse thunder in ways it hadn't since my own reckless 20s. He'd always been different, skirting the edges of our small-town life, volunteering at the local LGBTQ center in Cleveland on weekends, coming home with stories of rallies and rainbows that his mother dismissed as phases. Me? I'd nod, smile, and hide the way his laugh lingered in my chest like smoke. That evening, she'd called from her shift at the hospital, another double, her voice tired but warm, promising lasagna when she got home at midnight. The house was ours alone, a rare pocket of silence in our routine. I'd climbed the stairs to ask about dinner, not to invade, but fate or whatever cruel god pulls these strings had other plans. Now, here we were, the space between us crackling like a live wire. "Dad, Mark," he stammered, yanking the sheet up to his chin, his voice cracking on the edge of manhood. He never called me Dad. Not really. It was always Mark, a polite distance that both stung and saved us. But in that moment, the word hung heavy, pulling me closer. I stepped inside, closing the door with a soft click that echoed like a vow. My heart hammered against my ribs, a traitor to the vows I'd made in that white-knuckled wedding chapel. "It's okay, Chris," I said, my voice low, rougher than I intended, like gravel under tires. He sat up slowly, the sheet pooling around his waist, revealing the lean muscles of his chest, dusted with the faint shadow of hair. His eyes, those damn green eyes, inherited from his father, the ghost who lingered in old photos, searched mine, flickering with fear and something bolder, something that mirrored the forbidden thoughts I'd buried under layers of denial. I caught myself watching him too long at family barbecues, the way his smile lit up when he talked about art school dreams, or how his body moved with an effortless grace during pickup basketball in the driveway. "Sorry," he whispered, cheeks burning crimson. But he didn't look away. That was the hook that snagged meth defiance in his gaze. The unspoken question, "What now?" I crossed the room in 3 strides, perching on the edge of his bed, close enough to smell the faint citrus of his shampoo mixed with the musk of his arousal. The mattress dipped under my weight, and he shifted, the sheet slipping just enough to tease the line of his hip. "You don't have to apologize," I murmured, my hand hovering near his knee, not touching, but close enough that the heat from his skin ghosted mine. "We're both men here. Secrets like this, they don't have to stay hidden." His breath hitched. And for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just us, the hum of the AC downstairs, the distant bark of the neighbor's dog, fading into irrelevance. I'd known I was gay since I was his age. Back in the 90s, when coming out meant fists and family fractures in places like this. Rust Belt towns where love wore camouflage. I'd married Ellen for companionship, for the dream of normalcy she offered with her kind eyes and steady hand. But Christopher, he'd cracked that facade wide open, his quiet rebellion awakening the parts of me I'd starved for years. "Tell me," I said, my voice a rumble that surprised even me. "What were you thinking about?" It was dangerous. This line I towed. The teacher and meth high school history coach who prided himself on guiding lost boys twisting into something darker, more primal. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing, and whispered, "You." The word landed like a spark on dry tinder, igniting everything I'd suppressed. My hand finally made contact, resting on his thigh over the sheet. Firm but gentle, a promise wrapped in peril. From there, the lesson began not with words, but with the slow unraveling of barriers. I leaned in, my lips brushing his ear, whispering truths I'd never voiced about the ache of hidden desires, the beauty in vulnerability, the danger of loving against the world's grain. His body trembled under my touch as I guided his hand away from the sheet, showing him how to explore without shame, my fingers tracing paths that mapped his skin like uncharted territory. It was tender at first, kisses that tasted of salt and surprise, his inexperience melting into eagerness as he mirrored me, learning the rhythm of give and take. But danger lurked in every shadow. What if Ellen walked in early? What if the neighbors, with their prying eyes and whispered judgments, sensed the shift in our home? Christopher's moans were soft, stifled against my shoulder, but they echoed in my soul, a symphony of release and risk. We moved together, bodies entwining in a dance as old as time, yet forbidden in our little corner of America. His youth against my experience, his fire against my steady bonnet was electric, consuming, a lesson in the fragility of love that could shatter us both. As the clock ticked toward midnight, we lay spent, his head on my chest, fingers tracing lazy circles on my skin. "This changes everything," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. I held him tighter, the weight of what we'd done settling like autumn leaves heavy. Beautiful. Inevitable. Little did I know, this was just the spark. The real firestorm was coming, testing every bond we'd ever forged. The days blurred into a haze of stolen glances and midnight confessions, our secret blooming like a night flower in the garden Ellen tended with such care. Christopher threw himself into his community college classes, sketching feverishly in his notebook portraits of us, veiled in metaphor, that he'd hide when I passed his room. I'd watch from the doorway, my role as protector twisting into something possessive, a guardian of flames that could consume the house we shared. One evening, after practice, I came home to find him in the kitchen, flour dusted from attempting her lasagna recipe, his apron tied low on his hips, a smudge on his cheek that begged to be wiped away. We laughed about it, the domesticity a thin veil over the undercurrent pulling us under. But Ellen noticed the shift her hugs lingered. Her questions probed gently. "You two seem closer lately." "That's good. Right." Guilt gnawed at me like a persistent ache. But so did the thrill. The way Christopher's foot would brush mine under the dinner table. A Morse code of desire. We were careful. Or so I thought. Quick rendezvous in the garage. His body pressed against the workbench. My hands silencing his gasps with urgent kisses. Teach me more. He'd beg. Eyes dark with hunger. And I'd oblige. Showing him the art of restraint. The slow build that made release all the sweeter. Yet tension simmered beneath the surface, bubbling up in unexpected ways. At the local diner, where truckers and factory workers swapped stories over coffee, I overheard murmurs about that kid from the center, the one with the rainbow pins. Christopher had been outed in whispers, his volunteer work painting a target on his back. One night, as rain lashed the windows, he came home with a split lip, courtesy of some redneck who'd mistaken his kindness for weakness. I cleaned him up in the bathroom, my touch fierce with anger, dabbing antiseptic with hands that shook. No one touches you, I growled, pulling him close until our foreheads touched. Not like this. His response was a kiss that bruised, desperate and demanding, our bodies colliding against the sink in a frenzy that left mirrors fogged and hearts exposed. In the aftermath, wrapped in towels, we really talked for the first time about the world outside our walls. He dreamed of New York, art galleries where love like ours could breathe free. I confessed my own buried past, the lover I'd lost to AIDS in the 80s, the fear that had chained me to silence. You're not alone anymore, he said, his voice a lifeline. And in that moment, the lesson Rever Seth was teaching me courage, the kind that comes from bearing your soul. But danger doesn't announce itself. It creeps in on quiet feet. Ellen's shifts grew longer, her exhaustion a chasm widening between us. She confided in me one afternoon, her head on my lap as we sat on the porch swing. I worry about Chris. He's different. What if the world breaks him? Her words twisted the knife, forcing me to lie through smiles while inside. I burned with the truth of how I'd already begun to reshape him, body and spirit. The breaking point came on a crisp October weekend, leaves turning the streets to fire. Christopher had a rally in Columbus, and I drove him. The hours on the highway a cocoon of charged silence broken by his hand on my thigh. At the event, amid chanting crowds and fluttering flags, he shone speaking on a makeshift stage about acceptance, his voice steady despite the tremor I knew lurked beneath. I watched from the edges, pride swelling with a fierce protectiveness, until a group of counter-protesters surged forward. Signs like weapons, slurs flying like shrapnel. He made it back to the car unscathed, but shaken, collapsing into the passenger seat with tears streaking his face. They called me an abomination, he choked out, and something primal snapped in me. I pulled over on a deserted stretch of highway, the engine ticking like a bomb. Look at me, I commanded, cupping his face, thumbs wiping away the salt. You are not that. You are everything. Our kiss was salvation, fierce and affirming, hands roaming with a urgency born of survival. In the back seat, with the world rushing by outside, we claimed each other fully slow, deliberate, a ritual of defiance that left us breathless and bonded deeper than before. Returning home, the high faded into dread. Ellen was waiting, her eyes sharp with intuition, a pamphlet from the rally clutched in her fist. What's going on? She demanded. And as Christopher and I exchanged glances heavy with secrets, I realized the real lesson was just beginning. How to love without destruction. How to build from the ashes of truth. Thanksgiving loomed like a guillotine. The holiday forcing our fractured family into a performance of normalcy that chafed like wool against skin. Ellen bustled in the kitchen, turkey roasting with the scent of sage and regret, while Christopher and I orbited each other like wary planets brushing hands over pie crusts, sharing loaded looks across the table set for three. My sister and her kids arrived from Pittsburgh, filling the house with chaos and questions. Chris, you seeing anyone? Such a handsome boy. He'd flush, stammer about school, and I'd interject with pride that masked the ache. My fork scraping plate like nails on chalkboard. Nights were our refuge. When the house slept and we'd sneak into the basement. The rec room's old couch a throne for our clandestine court. There, under the flicker of a forgotten TV, I'd teach him the nuances of desire the way a neck's curve could elicit shivers. How whispered endearments in the dark wove spells stronger than any chain. He'd learn quickly, his touches evolving from tentative to masterful, drawing gasps from me that echoed my own youth's discoveries. I love how you feel, he'd murmur against my collarbone, his body arching in ways that made stars burst behind my eyelids. It was romantic. This education poetry in motion, where every caress penned a verse of acceptance. But kitsch tin brewed in the undercurrents, spilling over one frosty morning when Christopher's phone buzzed with a text from an ex-volunteer buddy. Heard you're shacking up with your old man. Careful. Freak. The words hit like ice water, freezing him in the hallway as I poured coffee. He showed me, screen trembling in his grip, and rage boiled up, hot and unbidden. Who? I demanded, but he shook his head, whispering, "It doesn't matter. It's out there now. Out there in the whispers of our town. The Facebook groups where morality policed like border guards." I pulled him into my arms, right there in the open. Consequences be damned. Holding him until the shudders subsided. We'll face it together, I vowed. But doubt not Ellen, oblivious upstairs, humming carols as she wrapped gifts. That night, guilt drove me to her bed, our lovemaking mechanical, a duty that left me hollow. She sensed it, rolling away with a sigh. Mark, talk to me. Is it work? Or Chris? Her intuition was a blade, slicing too close, and I mumbled lies about stress, fleeing to the shower where water couldn't wash away the betrayal staining my soul. The storm broke mid-holiday, during a family game night turned interrogation. My nephew, innocent as a lamb, asked Christopher point blank, "Uncle Mark, why do you look at Chris like that? Like in the movies, when people are in love." The room stilled, silverware clinking to a halt, Ellen's eyes widening in dawning horror. Christopher bolted, chair scraping like a scream, and I followed, the basement door slamming behind us. "I'm sorry," he gasped, back against the wall, tears carving rivers down his face. "I ruined everything." "No," I said, fierce as a vow, closing the distance to claim his lips in a kiss that tasted of desperation and devotion. We tumbled to the floor, clothes shedding like old skins, our union a defiant blaze against the chill seeping under the door. Upstairs, voices rose, Ellen's confusion morphing to anger. My sister's mediation a futile dam. But down here, in the dim glow of Christmas lights strung haphazardly, we found solace in each other, bodies moving in syncopated grace. His cries muffled against my neck as waves of pleasure crested and crashed. When we emerged, disheveled and determined, Ellen waited in the living room, eyes red-rimmed but resolute. I knew something was wrong, she said, voice steady despite the quake in her hands. But I didn't want to see it. The confrontation unfolded like a play we'd rehearsed in nightmares, accusations flying, tears flowing. Christopher shrinking beside me as I stood tall, confessing fragments of truth, the loneliness, the connection, the love that had bloomed unbidden. She didn't scream, didn't shatter plates. Instead, she wept, a mother's grief for the family fracturing under her nose. By dawn, with relatives shuffled out and the turkey cold on the counter, we sat in a circle of exhaustion, words weaving tentative bridges. I still love you both, Ellen whispered, her hand reaching for ours across the coffee table. But this, it's dangerous. For all of us. Christopher squeezed my fingers, his touch a lifeline. And in that fragile truce, I saw the human value, the messy beauty of forgiveness, the courage to redefine family beyond blood and vows. Yet peace was illusory, a brief intermission before the real tempest. Whispers turned to shouts when the town gossip mill churned, fueled by that damning text chain. At the grocery store, stares followed us like shadows. At my coaching practice, parents pulled kids aside with furtive glances. Christopher withdrew, his sketches turning dark thorns entwining lovers, flames licking at fragile forms. I can't breathe here, he confessed one night, curled against me in his bed, the room still scented with our shared heat. Take me away, just for a weekend. So we did, driving north to the shores of Lake Erie, a cabin rented under a false name, waves crashing like applause for our escape. There, unburdened by eyes, we explored without restraint, lazy mornings tangled in sheets, afternoons hiking trails hand in hand, evenings by the fire where stories flowed like wine. He opened up about his father's abandonment, the bullying that had scarred his teen years. I shared the terror of my closet, the friends lost to plague and prejudice. Our love deepened, romantic in its quiet intensity, kitsch tin in the ever-present fear of return. But danger shadowed even paradise. A call from Ellen midweek, the school called. Rumors about Chris. We need to talk, really talk. The drive home was silent agony. Christopher's head on my shoulder as I gripped the wheel white-knuckled. Back in Ohio, the air crackled with unresolved storms. Ellen's face a mask of resolve. Counseling, she insisted. Booking sessions for us all. Or we lose everything. As we nodded, bound by love's precarious thread, I wondered if teaching him danger had been a gift or a curse, one that would either forge us unbreakable or tear us asunder. Winter clamped down on our town like a vice, snow blanketing the sins we'd sown. But secrets have a way of thawing into floods. Counseling sessions became our battlefield. Dr. Harlan, a no-nonsense therapist with wire-rimmed glasses and a voice like weathered oak, probing the wounds with surgical precision. Ellen sat ramrod straight, her nurse's scrubs a armor of professionalism, detailing the betrayal's sting. I built this home on trust. Mark. How do I rebuild when it's cracked? Christopher fidgeted, his knee bouncing under the table, while I gripped the armrests, forcing words past the lump in my throat. It wasn't planned. It grew from care. From seeing him when no one else did. Harlan nodded, neutral as Switzerland. Assigning boundaries homework, no physical contact. Separate rooms. Journals of feelings to share aloud. It was torture. The proximity without touch. Christopher's scent haunting the hallway like a ghost. I'd catch him in the laundry room, folding shirts with that focused grace, and the urge to pull him close ward with the vow we'd made. Instead, we'd talk in whispers through cracked doors. His voice a balm. I miss you. This feels like dying slow. Romantic notions sustained us notes slipped into pockets. Quoting Whitman or Rumi. Promises of a future where we could breathe free. Kitsch tin escalated when the school rumors metastasized. Christopher's art professor, an ally with rainbow earrings, pulled him aside. Kid, there's talk. Protect yourself. But protection was illusion. A crude flyer appeared in lockers, fag family next door, taped with photos clipped from yearbooks. My coaching pic defaced with slurs. He brought it home, crumpling it in fists that shook. And we burned it in the backyard fire pit. Flames devouring the hate as we held each other from afar. Shoulders brushing in silent solidarity. Ellen, ever the mediator, rally joining a PFLAG chapter in secret. Her transformation from denial to advocacy, a quiet miracle. If this is who you are, she told Christopher over cocoa one night, then it's who we love. Her acceptance cracked open doors, allowing tentative family moments, movie nights where my arm draped the couch back, fingers grazing his hair without consequence. But danger lurked in complacency. One session, Harlan confronted me. Mark, this started as teaching. Was it power? Or love? The question hung, forcing introspection in the drive home. Rain sluicing windshield like tears I couldn't shed. Spring unfurled tentatively. Cherry blossoms mocking our winter scars. Christopher's portfolio earned him an interview at an art institute in Chicago, a lifeline. A chance to escape the town's chokehold. We celebrated subdued. Ellen baking his favorite cake. The three of us toasting to new beginnings. But excitement soured when his friend from the rally texted again, "They're coming for you. Watch your back." Paranoia bloomed. I installed cameras at the doors. Patrolled nights with a baseball bat by the bed. Christopher laughed it off, but fear etched lines around his eyes, aging him beyond his years. The crescendo hit on a balmy May evening, as fireflies danced in the yard like errant stars. I'd come home from track meets to find the front door ajar, heart plummeting as I called his name. Inside, chaos. Furniture overturned. Christopher cornered in the kitchen by two men, faces twisted in booze-fueled bigotry. The texter among them, reeking of cheap beer. "You pervs think you can corrupt our town." One snarled, fist raised. Time slowed. I lunged, tackling the leader to the floor, fists flying in a blur of red rage. Christopher grabbed a rolling pin, swinging wild, his cry a warble of fury and fear. The brawl spilled into the yard, neighbors' lights flicking on like accusatory eyes. Punches landed mine cracking jaw, his glancing shoulder, but numbers favored them until sirens wailed, blue and red painting the night. Police hauled them away. Statements taken amid flashing lights. Ellen rushing home to wrap us in blankets and outrage. In the ER. Stitches closing my split brow. Christopher held my hand under the thin gown, whispering, "You saved me." The words, laced with love's unyielding thread, mended more than flesh. Aftermath rippled, charges pressed. Community meetings where Ellen spoke fire. This is our son. Our family. Touch him. You touch us all. Support swelled. Unlikely allies emerging from PTA moms and church deacons shamed into silence. Harlan praised our resilience in session, trauma bonds. But so does choice. And choose we did. Christopher acing his interview. Packing for Chicago with promises of weekend visits. Me navigating divorce papers with Ellen's grace. Go live. Mark. We both deserve that. As summer heat baked the streets, our love endured in letters and late-night calls. Romantic in distance. Kitched in restraint. He arrived at my door one July weekend. Suitcase in hand. Eyes sparkling, I got in. But I can't leave without you. The kiss that followed was homecoming. Bodies reuniting in the bedroom we'd first crossed lines. Now sanctified by survival. In his arms, I found redemption, the dangerous lesson complete. Teaching not just desire, but the profound humanity of loving fiercely. Flaws and all. Chicago's skyline gleamed like a promise kept. Jagged against the autumn dusk as Christopher and I unloaded boxes into his cramped studio apartment near the Art Institute. The city pulsed with a rhythm alien to our Ohio quietude horns blaring. Crowds surging. Rainbows literal in the crosswalks of Boys Town. Ellen had helped fund the move. Her hug at the airport fierce, "Call me. And be happy for both of you." Her blessing, hard won, lingered like a talisman as we navigated the chaos. Laughing over spilled paint cans and IKEA disasters. Life fractured into parallel tracks. I commuted weekends. My coaching job a anchor in the rust. While he dove into classes figure drawing. Queer theory. Canvases blooming with our story in abstract strokes. Our reunions were fireworks. Bodies crashing together after days apart. His dorm-like space a haven of rumpled sheets and half-eaten takeout. Missed this. He'd grown. Tracing my scars from that night. Kisses mapping gratitude. I'd teach him still not danger now. But joy, rooftop picnics under stars. Hands intertwined at pride parades. The thrill of public affection without fear's shadow. Yet kitsch tin shadowed, even here. Back home. Whispers evolved into isolation, parents pulling teams from my practices. Anonymous calls, hissing threats. Ellen stood firm. Dating a kind widower from her support group. But loneliness clawed at me midweek. Phone calls with Chris, a lifeline laced with ache. "When are you coming for good?" He'd ask. Voice soft through static. And I'd promise soon. Job hunting in the windy city's underbelly. Crisis crested in November. Gray skies mirroring my mood. A letter arrived at the old house forwarded by Ellen. Pink slip from the school board. Conduct unbecoming. Fired. Just like that. For lifestyle choices impacting youth. Rage boiled as I boarded the train. Fists clenched. Arriving to find Christopher mid-crisis. A jealous classmate had outed our relationship in the Institute's group chat. Slurs flying like digital arrows. He met me at the station. Eyes hollow. But my arms enveloped him. The platform crowd be damned. That night, We raged together, first in fury, screaming into pillows, then in passion, reclaiming power on his narrow bed. "They're wrong," I murmured, body slick and synced, his gasps a mantra of defiance. Morning brought resolve. He introduced me to his professor, a grizzled activist who connected me to teaching gigs at community centers. Ellen wired savings. Her note simple: fight. Like we did. Winter deepened our bond. Holidays split between cities, Thanksgiving in Ohio with her new beau. Awkward but healing. Christmas in Chicago with twinkling trees and skating on Millennium Park ice. His laughter echoing as we fell into drifts. Romantic gestures abounded. He painted me nude, vulnerable and adored, hanging it veiled in his studio. I surprised him with tickets to a Broadway revival of Angels in America, tears streaming during monologues that echoed our own ghosts. But danger resurfaced in spring, insidious as ivy. Ohio cops called the attackers from that night, out on bail, circling the old neighborhood with veiled threats. "They're saying they'll finish what they started," the officer drawled, unsympathetic. Panic surged. I urged Chris to stay put, but he insisted on coming south for Ellen's birthday. Train ride tense with what-ifs. At the party, Joy masked fear cake and candles, her smile radiant, but as dusk fell, headlights swept the driveway, engines revving like predators. They came in twos, masks pulled low, bats glinting. Chaos erupted, glass shattering, screams piercing the night. I shoved Christopher behind the couch, tackling one intruder as Ellen dialed 911. Her voice steel. Punches flew. Furniture splintered, until sirens scattered them like roaches. Bruised and bleeding, we huddled in the aftermath, cops taking notes with half-hearted efficiency. Hate crime. Ellen spat, demanding action. Her advocacy igniting local news headlines screaming, "Family terrorized for love." The story broke wide. Interviews with us painting portraits of resilience, Christopher's art as witness. My coaching tales reframed as mentorship and acceptance. Support poured in fundraisers, ally letters, even the school board backpedaling with a settlement. In the eye of the storm, our love shone human and vital, a beacon against bigotry's night. By summer, I'd relocated fully. A new job at a Chicago high school embracing diversity. Apartment shared with Chris overlooking the lake. Ellen visited often, her life blooming anew. Our family redefined in letters and love. One evening, as waves lapped and he sketched by the window, I knelt ring simple, silver band etched with our dangerous truth. "Marry me." His yes was a sob, kiss sealing vows unspoken. In that moment, the lessons converged. Danger taught us strength. Romance wove our souls. Kitsch tin forged unbreakable bonds. We were human flawed, fierce, forever changed, living the value of love that dares to defy. The wedding was small, a rooftop affair under Chicago's relentless summer sun. Rainbow banners fluttering like prayers answered. Ellen walked Christopher down the aisle, a path of petals scattered by wind, her eyes misty with pride. The widower at her side beaming like a co-conspirator. Friends from the Institute mingled with Ohio allies who'd braved the drive. Toasts raising glasses to love's quiet revolutions. Vows exchanged, hands trembling, mine promising protection eternal. His vowing fire to my steady flame. The kiss sealed it. cheers erupting as Lake Breeze carried our joy. Honeymoon was a road trip west. Canyons of Utah swallowing our past like ancient secrets. We hiked hand in hand, bodies weary but spirits soaring. Nights in tinted bliss where stars witnessed our endless explorations tender now. The danger tamed to playful edges. You taught me to live, he whispered one dawn, head on my chest, and I held him closer, the human warmth of him erasing old scars. Back home, life settled into rhythms romantic and real, mornings brewing coffee. His easel in the corner capturing urban vignettes. Evenings coaching youth teams where I wove acceptance into drills. Kids asking bold questions with eyes wide. Kitch Tin lingered in Echo Isa court date for the attackers. Testimonies relived in sterile rooms. But justice prevailed. Sentences handed down amid protests quelled by growing support. Christopher's first gallery show came in fall. Walls alive with our story abstract lovers entwined in thorns and light. Titles like Lessons in Flame. Critics raved. Sales funding a down payment on a house with a yard for future dreams. Ellen announced her engagement. Our blended family expanding in waves of acceptance. Holidays now tapestries of laughter and lore. Yet growth demanded confrontation. A letter from my estranged brother. Post-trial, heard about you. Disgusted. But sorry for the old man. It cracked open forgiveness. A call bridging decades. His voice gruff with regret. Love who you love, he muttered, and hung up small victory. Human in its imperfection. Winter brought challenges, Chris's exhibition tour pulling him to coasts. Separations testing trust. Jealousy flickered, quelled by nightly calls laced with "I adore you." Return reunions were fire airport dashes into embraces. Homecomings that stripped away miles in heated haste. Spring bloomed adoption talks fostering a queer teen. Paying forward the lessons. Paperwork mountains. Home studies probing our dangerous past. But love's narrative prevailed. A boy named Alex joining us. Wide-eyed and wary. Thawing under patient guidance. Years folded like gallery pages. Alex thriving in art classes. Ellen's wedding a joyous echo. Our love enduring storms a health scare for me. Biopsy benign, but bond deepened. Chris's novel illustrated. Bestseller whispering our truth to thousands. In quiet moments. Reflecting on that fateful door creak. I saw the arc, from forbidden spark to enduring flame. Danger the forge of humanity's finest love unapologetic. Lives intertwined in meaningful tapestry. A decade danced by. Chicago's pulse syncing with ours. The apartment traded for a brownstone with a studio overlooking garden plots where tomatoes ripened under Alex's green thumb. Now 15. He navigated high school crushes with our counsel, heart first. Always. Chris advised. Sketching his portraits with fierce affection. My coaching evolved to mentorship programs. Queer youth finding safe harbor in gymnasiums, once echoing judgment. Romantic threads wove tighter. Anniversaries marked with recreations that first rooms echo in hotel suites. Lessons revisited in laughter and lust. Kitch Tin softened to stories of reunion with reformed attackers. Mediated circles yielding apologies tear-streaked. Humanity reclaiming ground. Ellen's family grew. Grandchildren tumbling through holidays. Her hand in mine during toasts to dangerous beginnings. Chris's career soared murals in museums. TED Talks on love's rebellion yet home grounded him. Evenings curled with books. My arm his pillow. Aging graced us gently. Wrinkles mapping journeys. Hands veined but clasped unwavering. Alex married in our garden, vowing amid blooms. His partner an echo of young love fierce. Unyielding. Grandkids scampered. Demanding stories, tell the dangerous one. We'd spin yarns veiled. Laughter veiling truths profound. Chris's final exhibit. Flames enduring. Chronicled Uskin vases of time's passage. Critics weeping at the humanity. My retirement speech at the center. Love teaches what fear cannot courage to be. Ellen's passing. Soft in sleep. Left voids filled with memories her last words. You made him whole. We honored her with scholarships. Ripples widening. In quiet. Cancer whispered to Chris. Treatment's a gauntlet we faced entwined. No regrets. He smiled. Weak but wicked. Our nights tender tapestries of touch and tales. His end came dawnlit. My vigil unbroken. Last breath a sigh of peace. Grief hollowed. But legacy bloomed Alex's films. Grandkids art. Our story etched in stars. Alone. Never is spirit in every stroke. Every heartbeat. The dangerous lesson. Life's true value, loving boldly. Leaving light in darkness. Humanity's spark undimmed.